Good evening, West Coast Jurong West. Good evening, Singapore. It feels so good to be back. This was where I first stood in 2020, West Coast GRC. This is where the spark was lit. And though tonight I stand before you as a candidate for Marymount SMC, West Coast Jurong West will always be home for us in the Progress Singapore Party. Because this is where we made our stand, where we challenge the status quo, where we prove that Singaporeans are not afraid to speak up, to stand tall, and to ask for better. Do you remember recently we have a corrupt minister from the party we once trusted? And tonight, we are back with stronger resolve, back with clearer eyes, back with Dr. Cheng Bock. A man who for 26 years served with integrity, who dared to challenge even his own party when it lost its way, and who came out of retirement not for personal gain, but because he could not stay silent while Singaporeans struggled. Dr. Tan built PSP because he believed in serving the people, because when the ground shifted, he stood firm. And he now returns with Leong Man Wai, Hazel Phua, to finish what he started. Ladies and gentlemen, PSP was not born yesterday. It was Dr. Tan who championed the use of CPF for children's education. It was Dr. Tan who pushed for free HDB parking on Sundays and public holidays to strengthen family bonds. It was Dr. Tan who stood firmly against the nominated member of parliament scheme, arguing that every voice in parliament must be elected by the people and accountable to the people. These weren't just policies, they were acts of care. They reflected what leadership should look like. And today, many of those ideas are claimed by others. But remember, they began with a voice, a voice of conscience, not convenience. Now we hear about sheltered walkways, new train lines, and home improvements. But these are the natural work of URA, LTA, and HDB. Let us not confuse development with direction. In Marymount, my opponent, Ms. Gan Xiao Huang, speaks of estate upgrading, of active aging centers. She paints a glossy picture of progress. But let me ask you this. Are we truly progressing? If our elderly need more centers to stay occupied because their children are just too exhausted by long hours and high costs, are we truly listening? If dialogues are held but the same problems echo back for years without any resolution. She says, I am not alone, referring to the GRC level support. But Marymount is a single member constituency. And in an SMC, you cannot outsource leadership. You must carry it yourself. You must face the people, not just in the good times, but when things are hard. Leadership in an SMC is not about slogans, it is personal, it is direct, it is accountable. Where was her voice when residents cried out about the cost of living? Where was the urgency when young couples couldn't afford homes near their parents' home? Where was the strength when our seniors who gave their lives to this country now worry about outliving their savings? I have walked your blocks. I have stood at your void decks. I've looked many of you in your eyes. And I've heard your stories. Stories of stress, of silent struggles, of being left behind. So let me tell you now, I will not just visit, I will stand with you. I will not just listen, I will act. I will not just manage, I will challenge the systems that hold you down. Because Marymount doesn't need more maintenance, it needs renewal. We don't need smiles on posters, we need a voice in Parliament. One that speaks truth to power. One that asks the hard questions. One that demands better. Honestly, how often have you heard Ms. Gan speak for you in Parliament? This election, I'm not offering token schemes or shiny headlines. I'm fighting for a real safety net for our seniors, a job market that prioritizes our local talents, our people. A fairer, a more balanced education system. And speaking of fairness in our education system, you might have heard a recent proposal made by a PAP MP. He suggested that degrees from our local universities should come with a 5-year expiry date. Yes, you heard it right. Your hard-earned degree, after years of sweat and sacrifice and study, would become just a worthless piece of paper after 5 years. As a local graduate from NUS myself, I was deeply insulted by this suggestion. Education in Singapore is already incredibly stressful. Do we really want our young people to live in fear that every 5 years they'll have to prove their worth all over again? Do you know who made that proposal? It was one of the PAP candidates right here in West Coast, Jurong West. Well, later he backtracked. He said, I only wanted to draw attention to lifelong learning. He says, let's put a 5-year timestamp on your degrees. I say, let's put a 5-year timestamp on his term in Parliament. His 5 years are up. Let's take his advice and help him graduate from Parliament on polling day. Let me be frank with you. I may not have all the resources of the ruling party, but I have something far stronger. I have the will to fight for you. And so I ask for your belief, your courage, your voice. Let us build a Marymount and a Singapore where policies are not written in ivory towers, but born from real pain, real people, and real problems. Where leadership is not about appearances, but about showing up day after day, let us remind those in power, Singapore belongs to her people, not just her planners. Tonight, I urge you to support Dr. Tan, Hazel, Manwai, Sunny, Lakey, here in West Coast, Jurong West. But also support our voices in Marymount, Choa Chu Kang, Pioneer, Kebun Baru, and Bukit Gombak. Because this is bigger than one SMC or GRC. This is about the soul of Singapore. This is the real Majula Marymount. This is the real Majula West Coast Jurong West. The real Majula Singapura. Vote for the courage to care. Vote for Progress for All. Vote for Progress Singapore Party.